you. All right, so I'm gonna go to this guy. This guy's name is Thunderbra. Thunderbra here says manga recommendations 2023. Even though this is from a year ago, doesn't mean they're not worthy of checking out. So let's see what Thunderbra got. So let's see.
2 weeks into 2023, but I just wanted to do a video, give some manga recommendations. The first one I want to talk about is something that I feel is very underrated. It is Ranger Reject, and it's actually one of my favorite manga that I've read in a while.
I know currently I think this manga's got an anime. I think it's coming out. I think it either came out now or it's coming out this month or the following month.
Honestly, if you were to go and check out only one manga from this video, yeah, Ranger Reject would definitely be the one I would want you all to check out. Now, I've only read 20 chapters, but just from the 20 chapters I've read, it's very good. It does such a good job of setting up the story and setting up the world, all the characters. It's about the typical bad guys and good guys, the bad guys being these invaders, weird aliens from outer space, and the good guys called Rangers. And you learn right off the bat that the bad guys, the invaders, they're just putting on an act that is all orchestrated by the Rangers. It's a very interesting gimmick, and the main character is actually an invader, but they are fed up with the whole situation of having to dance to the Rangers tune and having to do whatever the Rangers tell them. And so this main character, he's only a foot soldier, he's very weak, and the best of these Rangers, they're called Dragon Keepers. They are very strong, very OP. So the main character, Foot Soldier D, has to find very interesting ways to work around, being weak, having to come up with clever schemes, which he does have one power, which is pretty good, and that is he's able to shapeshift. And so he goes undercover as a human trying to get into the Rangers to sabotage them. It really gives you right off the bat some morally gray characters, because when you take a look at the heroes or the Rangers, you have to really ask yourself, are these people really the good guys? Because they're taking advantage of the whole situation of the invaders, making them do things against their will, all to kind of benefit from it, to market stuff, to get people to buy things. And one of the first Rangers we see, the Red Ranger, he's a very twisted person, and you kind of get the idea that most of these Rangers are very twisted. And so the main character, Foot Soldier D, has to go up against all these people, all these Rangers, and by themselves, at least at the start, because everyone else is too scared to. Just seeing all that within, the first 20 chapters, I could definitely tell that the setup for this whole story, it's phenomenal. There's so many things that could be expanded on, and the main character, he actually meets two people that kind of help him, and they're both actually Rangers.
Pretty much, that's what that is. They're pretty much anime Power Rangers, but with a twist. The twist is that they're not as good as they claim.
Oh, I've heard of this manga. It's so interesting.
Yeah, I think there's an anime right now coming out. Either I think this year. I think it came out this year, if I remember right. Yeah, I think it's this year.
Is this very emotionless character that has this more evil side to her. She's kind of the mastermind behind this foot soldier, or behind our main character, to kind of help him. And then there's another character, I don't remember his name exactly, but he sees the good in everything. He's, the glass half full type of character. And after he learns about the Rangers, what they actually are doing to these invaders, this guy wants to create peace between the invaders and the Rangers, and get things to work out in a more peaceful way. And the greatest thing about this manga is that our main character, although he's dead set on trying to just kill off all these Rangers, completely dominate the world, typical villain stuff, he starts to see things through other people's perspectives. It definitely deserves a whole video in and of itself, just because it's that great. So yeah, you should definitely check it out. Now, another manga I found pretty interesting is called Bad Girl Exorcist Reina. The title, I'm not gonna lie, it sounds a bit weird, but if you're just looking for something that's kind of stupid but funny, but also has some creepy stuff thrown into it, you should definitely give this one a read. The whole comedy aspect of it plays off of one gag, and that might be a major turnoff to, a lot of people. But there's this girl, Reina. She seems very much like a delinquent. It turns out she's an exorcist, and she can see ghosts. She could beat them up. She could kind of talk to them, interact with them, while everyone around her can't really, can't do that. And the way way Reina goes about exercising these ghosts, or getting rid of these ghosts, is by being mean to them and beating them up. Within the first chapter, we see her writing some stuff on a desk of another student, and she's able to actually drive the ghosts away that way. But the problem is that everyone around her thinks she's some very mean girl, a very mean delinquent. But we learn through Kokoro, another very important person in this manga, that Reina just doesn't really care about whatever people think about her, and so that's why she's acting the way she does, and why she doesn't really give any explanations. But yeah, I really like this, this more paranormal side to this manga, how it's kind of creepy and can go a bit towards the more horror aspect of things. If you're coming into the story to try and get scared and, finding something like Junji Ito, this manga definitely isn't that. I will say it does get a bit creepy though. Like, I think one of my favorite parts of the story is that there's this teacher, his name's Watanabe, and he's very scared of women. I think it's called like linophobia or something like that. And this all stems from when he
That's a term? That's really a thing? I didn't know that was really a thing. What the fuck? I didn't know that was a thing. You can be scared of women? That's a term? Oh my god. I know women say that stupid shit when you're talking to a feminist, but like, Jesus Christ. Oh my god.
Was traumatized as a little kid. One bright sunny day, he was just sitting out in the sun, and he ends up seeing this woman. She's at first very tall. She's kind of hiding behind this gate, and when this woman goes to talk to Watanabe, the woman sort of just shrinks herself and makes herself seem, more friendly than she is, and tells Watanabe to come with her up into the mountains and go play in the river. So Watanabe, being a kid, he follows her. One of the first things he sees when they're playing in the river is that this woman has some very long legs when she...
I'm not gonna lie to you. As a kid, I don't know how kids get lured by this shit. Most kids, when growing up, I always knew that when kids come across people they don't know, they usually stay very far away from them because they don't know who they are, right? Kids are usually extremely shy in most cases. Kids are not quick to just leave with a stranger they just don't know, right? This is a weird trope I always hear that happens in like anime or something, or in cartoons, where a kid would just verily just leave with some stranger they do not know. I understand if they got kidnapped by said stranger, that's one thing. But when they just leave with a stranger and say, hey, let's just go somewhere, and you don't know this person, you never met them, and for some odd reason, they will do this. That is the most weirdest thing for a kid to do. I don't know. Like, most kids do not want to do anything, much less go anywhere. Especially with someone they don't know.
walked up to me and talked to me about Pet X Simulator on Roblox Skull.
Oh my god, maybe I'm just different. Maybe I just, you know what? Maybe I'm different. I was born in a different era. Kids are different. Roblox and this fucking, I don't know. I just never thought kids will do shit like this. I always hear this like in fucking movies and cartoons and shit, but never like in real life. I always hear what's in real life. I just hear the kid getting kidnapped, not they just left with someone.
Lifts up her skirt to stay dry. And Watanabe doesn't really think anything of this. He's, sort of weirded out, but thinks nothing of it. But then this woman goes to grab Watanabe, and Watanabe sees that this woman's hand kind of stretches out, and he's like, this is definitely a bit weird. And then Watanabe takes off his shirt to wring it out, and he notices the woman's face changes and, distorts into something very creepy. And that's when he definitely knows something's up and runs away. So yeah, overall, I'd say it's a stupid comedy manga. It's very enjoyable, at least to me. But later down the line, at least within the most recent chapter...
Wait, that's what causes his so-called phobia? Not much of a phobia if you think of it. And it doesn't sound so traumatizing. It's weird. Very strange experience, but like, I wouldn't consider that like something to be scared of women for. You just had one bad experience with probably like one lady who didn't do much to you. So I don't know. I think kids will have more of a bad experience and have a phobia if they fell on their bike. I don't know.
it does get a bit more serious, and there's a few more characters
LOL
besides
uniquely
just
written
this
origin for
Watanabe
I
teacher
know.
guy, or
It's
you know,
weird.
Reina and Kokoro. There's definitely a few more characters that you might find interesting, and if you like some creepy stuff, then yeah, this isn't super creepy, but you should definitely still check it out. This next manga though, I was very hesitant to even put this in this video because it is just pure evil. It's called Aku no Kyoten, aka The Lessons of Evil, and I just want to give a warning right away
I'm not
that
liking where
this
this is about to
manga
go.
definitely isn't for people who have a hard time with dark stuff. This manga gets very violent. It is short though, it only has like 34 chapters, but if you just want to see an absolutely sinister main character, this story definitely has that. So there's this teacher called Hasumi, and he seems like a sort of normal character, at least, you know, when we first see him. Throughout the story, you really pick up on the fact that he's extremely smart. You know, he's a smooth talker. He has it very easy when it comes to being able to deal with people. And one of the first real looks at seeing this more twisted side of this teacher is seeing how he solves normal teacher problems, you know, like misbehaving students, things like that. But he does it in a more twisted way. Honestly, you could just sum up the whole story just like that. But there's a few smarter students that kind of pick up on this, or kind of know that this teacher isn't really what he seems to be. And once the student starts to poke holes through this teacher's disguise, you really just see something very evil. Eventually, this teacher Hasumi, he just snaps. And to explain things in a very family-friendly way, let's just say Hasumi goes to this school and plays Fortnite, except he's the only one who has a weapon. Yeah, it gets very wild, very crazy. I will say there's some stuff to do with crows that kind of foreshadow things within the story. If you go and read this, kind of pay attention to it, because I only really picked up on it and really understood what was going on with the crows on my second read through. This is definitely gonna be my first.
I don't know if it's just me, but it's not that I don't like. It's not like I don't have a problem with gory and insane stuff. I just want to know how far I can go to the point that it's just like I'm just that morbidly curious. I think anyone else's could be like morbidly curious to read books like this. Not like they're just gonna look for one, but if they come across it, if I were to come across a manga like this, I would probably just read it out of just pure curiosity. Just not because I like this shit. It's just that it's just the morbidness. It's like it's like you watching a scary movie. You know the scary movie is not gonna end well, right? But you want to know how far it can really go before just like.
First and last time mentioning this, because this manga is just so messed up, which is why you could definitely use something a lot more wholesome after this, and this is where the next manga comes in. I know, great segue. Skip to Loafer. This manga, when I think of slice of life, this is one of the first things that comes to mind. Now, I'm not the biggest slice of life fan, and especially when it's doing the very generic thing of taking place in a high school and has a big focus on romance. So I honestly didn't really give it a chance at first. I was so ready to drop it. My expectations were very low, but a lot of focus gets placed on two characters. The main character in the story is called Mitsumi. She's a girl out from the country. She's very oblivious to things, sort of childish, but she wants to go to Tokyo to, I guess, live out her dream of going to a big city and becoming a bureaucrat or some government official, something like that. But another character that a lot of focus
God, that sounds fucking boring. I'm not gonna lie, that sounds fucking boring.
it's placed onto is this guy called Shima. He's very outgoing, very friendly, and although I didn't really like this story at first, the whole dynamic between this Mitsumi and Shima, how it plays out, it's very, I guess, sort of mature in a way. But Shima, he's this actor, or he used to be an actor, and he has this sort of trauma that has to do with his mom and also being an actor, and how he's never really been able to form any real connections with people because they all just see the surface level of him and don't really try to become real friends or anything like that. And that's a very big theme of this story, is forming real connections with others, and also just how people will treat you differently just based on your success and even how you look. It dives into some mature themes, and you know, they're not dark or anything like that. I mean, I guess they can kind of be a little bit, but more so just how making connections that aren't super strong long can be very problematic. Another reason why I really like this though is
It just sounds like an anime that might just tiptoe around the idea of anxiety and just, overthinking too much, kind of. It just sounds like that to me. It don't sound like it's that big of a deal.
that the story, although romance is a very big part of it, it doesn't really rely on romance as much as I thought it would. And another really interesting topic that I saw being explored within this is the difference between wanting a platonic relationship, wanting to be friends with someone, and also wanting a romantic relationship. That's also kind of a big part that's been explored within the more recent chapters. You could just really feel a level of depth within these characters that I can very much appreciate. It was very unexpected to see within something I thought was just going to be a normal slice of life story. On the surface, that's really what it is, but yeah, there's a bit more to it than just that. The next manga that is worth checking out, and especially if you're a big fan of martial arts and just straight action within your manga, you need to check out Gamaran. This manga does not waste
It looks like it's from the author of Full Metal Alchemist, but I could be wrong.
your time at all. Although it spends a little bit of time setting up, the whole situation for these characters to go down. As soon as the fights start, they really just don't stop throughout the story. It's non-stop fighting. I can only really think of one part in the story that, you're not really seeing these characters in a life and death situation, but most of the time, that's what's happening. So the main character of the story, his name's Gama. I think at the start he's like 14 or 15, but he's a part of this martial arts school, and it's called the Ogame School. He ends up meeting this other person called Naoyoshi, and Naoyoshi is a son of a feudal lord, a daimyo. This daimyo is holding a martial arts competition to see who's gonna succeed him, who's gonna be next in line. And so going out and hiring martial artists is a big part of this competition, and Naoyoshi hires Gama and the Ogame School. At first, it's pretty much Gama versus a whole bunch of different schools, a whole bunch of different martial artists. There's so many different type of styles and weapons that are used within this manga. There's like spears, bows, swords, and even people just using their bare fists.
I don't know if it's the way he's explaining it, but it sounds interesting nonetheless. It don't sound nothing brand new, but it does sound interesting.
Really just the story's biggest strength is that there's so much fighting going on. Now you could definitely consider the non-stop fighting to be a detriment because, you're not really given a super long amount of time to really get comfortable with these characters. But somehow I feel like the story is able to flesh out these characters through fighting. And I think a cool thing that this story does is that it doesn't treat Gama as a meathead or, just some stupid person who's all brawn and no brains. He has to constantly be thinking to himself about how to win fights, how to, perform different techniques. And he's very talented at, just being a martial artist. At first, it seems like Gama is pretty much all alone in the Ogame School, but we also get introduced to some of Gama's fellow disciples. There's Iori, Shinojo, and Zenmaru. Let me just say, Iori is one of my favorite characters within this story. He gets stuff done, something that I feel like might not happen all that often within, action battle manga. He's just straight up raw and doesn't play around whatsoever. But we also learned that Gama's dad is really just the big bad within this manga. He's the big antagonist. Honestly, I'd say he's, well, maybe not the greatest antagonist ever. Some of the stuff that gets depicted through him is very interesting. Gama's dad is called Jinsuke, and so Jinsuke, he betrayed the Ogame School, and so you kind of see that Gama wants revenge on his dad. And what this Jinsuke guy brings to the table, what this antagonist brings to the table, is a very interesting clash of philosophies. But if you just want to read something that is very heavily focused on martial arts, and really that's the biggest thing that makes up the story, then this is a must read for you. Now the next manga I want to talk about is called Ragna Crimson. It's a dark fantasy, and really I just want to state my biggest problem with this series right off the bat, and that is the story tries so hard to make the main character Ragna as tragic as possible. Within the first chapter, it felt felt like it's being way too dramatic. You know, from the stuff he experiences, it makes sense, but right off the start, it's sort of a weird thing to me, or at least it seems kind of weird. But apart from that, those are really my only problems with the story, because it also focuses on action a whole lot. To summarize, like the first chapter, Ragna goes through some weird stuff and becomes very strong. So this whole story is about Ragna going around and killing dragons. And Ragna, as he's running around everywhere, he meets this other person called Crimson, and Crimson is also a dragon, except except he takes the form of a human. At first, I thought the story was just to be all about the, you know, the generic looking dragons, but as the story goes on, the dragons transform into more human type of characters. The more human they look, the more powerful they are. But if you just want to look for some very insane and crazy fights that kind of have to do with magic, yeah, that's exactly what Ragnar Crimson does. Moving on to the last manga.
It sounds interesting nonetheless. I don't think nothing's wrong with it. It sounds fun, but I don't like how he said it had to be. It tries its best to be as, I guess, it flirts with the idea of trying to make the character too tragic, and that could be a little bit try hard on its own, and that could be problematic.
I want to talk about is called Boku no Kokoro no Yabai Yatsu, aka The Dangers in My Heart. This is my favorite romance story that I've read in a long time. This story just focuses on these two middle schoolers, and the main character, they're called Ichikawa, and Ichikawa just really looks down on everyone else. He's sort of this edgelord, I guess that's the best way to explain him. But yeah, Ichikawa, he's an edgelord. He views everyone around him as stupid and sees everything as pointless. But although he's constantly thinking these things, in reality, he's just some quiet and shy kid who doesn't really talk.
Yeah, I heard this one. I think it has an anime already.
Talk much to anyone. And with the title at the start, I really thought this story was gonna be about murder and stuff like that. And especially when Ichikawa is sort of thinking to himself about murdering, you know, his classmates. But very quickly, that illusion is sort of broken. Especially when you pick up on the fact that Ichikawa is very interested in this one girl in the class that is popular. She's cherry, very bright. And her name is Yamada. She's pretty much the exact opposite of Ichikawa. Very outgoing. And so this whole story is about Ichikawa and Yamada growing closer. A very typical, you know, romance thing. And there's a lot of stuff that has to do with Ichikawa overcoming his, you know, his awkwardness and growing closer to his classmates. I really like how Yamada is always getting him involved in stuff. At first, I didn't think Yamada liked Ichikawa. I just thought Ichikawa was doing some very weird things, and I mean, he does do some weird stuff at the beginning and maybe throughout this manga, but you kind of see that
Alright, Skull, thank you for coming. I do appreciate you, bro. I hope to see you again tomorrow and stuff. We're going to be doing more reactions and all that great stuff, but thank you for coming in. Thank you for at least giving a try to the stream, so I do appreciate you. Thank you, Skull. Thank you. Have a great night, and also be safe.
Yamada is also interested in Ichikawa, and eventually you kind of end up seeing a little bit more serious stuff. You find out that Ichikawa, the whole reason he's edgy and looks down on other people, it's because when he got into middle school, he's been kind of excluded from everyone else. And so Ichikawa just became a loner, and he sort of just embraces the fact that he's all alone. And so not only is the story about Yamada and Ichikawa, you know, kind of growing closer to each other, but also about Ichikawa breaking out of his shell and sort of becoming more friendly, you know, just being able to talk to his classmates normally and have more fun with them. And that's one aspect of the story that I really just came to love. Even though Ichikawa in the beginning, he's very weird, very dark and edgy, you really just see that throughout this whole story, he's ultimately this kind guy. He does some kind of nice things. And I guess that's really what made Yamada interested in him at first.
So let me get this straight. The only thing that kept this kid from gunning down his students is a girl. The power of the power of melons saved us from getting. Are you kidding me? Like, is that really what this is? That's the only thing that kept us from not getting destroyed by this individual? Is because of boobs? Crazy.
Though The Dangers in My Heart kind of sounds like a
Sounds
more
like it,
edgy
Loki.
title, this
Loki.
is definitely one of the most wholesome mangas out of this video. A very strong competitor with Skip to Loafer. If you have any recommendations, of course, leave them in the comments because, you know, I'm always on the lookout to read some new manga. So yeah, I'd just like to say thanks for watching. See you in the next one. If you like any of these manga, go check them out. Go give them a shot. And peace.
Yes. You know, in a weird way,
I know we're already
I'm actually quite impressed by this lineup. I think only one we recognized, and all the rest was brand new to me. Well, no, two, no, three actually. Three we recognized, but not talked about all that much. But it was a fresh one from all the ones that we constantly hear about all the time. That's like manga recommendations. So like that's a win. I think that's a win. We found a video that was not just typical and what they recommended. So that was a win. So I give it to Thunderbra. So guys, if you like what Thunderbra has done, like, subscribe, share, follow, and comment to him, and your